It was intended to be one of Russia's most effective weapons, a stealth missile fired from Russia's supposed fifth-generation fighter jet, the Su-57, that could evade air defenses and strike a target with immense force. Powerful, hidden, seemingly unstoppable. For Vladimir Putin, this missile was supposed to represent one of the greatest threats that Russia could pose to Ukraine's cities. And now, one of those missiles is a flaming piece of junk. Ukraine took out one of Russia's stealthiest missiles, and it did it with a weapon that was never designed to counter missiles. And Putin rages as Ukraine strikes his stealth missile using cheap tech. On October 11, United24 Media reported on Ukraine's amazing missile kill shot, noting that Ukraine has managed to take down a Kh-69 missile, which is believed to be among the stealthiest missiles that Russia has in its arsenal, using an APKWS interceptor. The interceptor will be explored in more detail later in the video. For now, the key point is that the APKWS is a laser-guided rocket capable of destroying aerial targets. Laser guidance makes APKWS ideal for destroying slow-moving drones. Ukraine just used the system to take out one of Russia's best missiles. Best of all, Ukraine achieved this remarkable feat using a rocket that costs far less than the missile that it destroyed. Each Kh-69 cost Russia around $500,000 to build, Euromaidan Press reported in September. The rocket Ukraine used cost a fraction of the price, just $25,000, according to United24 Media. That means Ukraine just achieved a 20-to-1 return, all using a rocket that should never have been able to come close to a Kh-69 in full flight. Russia might want to deny this ever happened, but it can't. Ukraine has footage of the entire incident. Published as a Facebook reel by Ukraine's Air Command East, the video shows what happened to Russia's missile as seen from the perspective of the weapon system Ukraine used to fire the APKWS. The missile is seen hurtling through the sky, with the APKWS locked on and tracking it in flight. Observant viewers will even see the laser pointer the APKWS uses flashing on the Russian missile. Just as the Kh-69 looks like it's about to start its defense, the trigger is pulled and Ukraine's rocket is fired. The result is clear for anybody to see. The Kh-69 gets blown to pieces by a $25,000 rocket. The footage soon found its way into the hands of the OSINT Technical X account. OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, with OSINT Technical often providing breakdowns of footage and interesting statistics relating to the Ukraine war. It has the following to say about Ukraine's footage. Footage of a Ukrainian vampire brawler SAM system shooting down a Russian Kh-69 cruise missile with a low-cost APKWS laser-guided rocket. The outlet adds that this footage confirms that the platform, initially intended as an anti-drone weapon, can also successfully down higher-end threats. That's why Putin is fuming. Russia can lose as many drones as Ukraine can shoot out of the skies. Russia can always build more because those drones are cheap and expendable. But a $500,000 missile represents an investment in the destruction of a Ukrainian city. If Ukraine can shoot those missiles out of the sky with a rocket that costs a fraction of the price, Putin knows that the West only has to hand over more of these laser-guided rockets to make Russia's Kh-69s far less effective. OSINT mentioned something interesting, noting that Ukraine used one of its Brawler surface-to-air missile or SAM systems to fire the APKWS. It's unclear how much this particular system costs, but it also doesn't really matter. Ukraine can use one Brawler over and over again. Each Kh-69, along with the APKWS Ukraine used to shoot that missile down, is a one-time only weapon. It's meant to launch, travel and destroy, not launch, travel and be destroyed. Ukraine pulled off its amazing feat during yet another night when Russia launched a heavy aerial strike. Militani has the details of Russia's strike, noting that it took place on October 10 and that it saw Russia launch huge numbers of drones along with cruise and ballistic missiles at Ukraine. It appears Russia was attempting to take out Ukrainian energy infrastructure during this attack, and it was somewhat successful. Russia's missiles and drones managed to damage some infrastructure, in addition to damaging residential buildings. Kyiv was hit. Some areas of Ukraine's capital were left without electricity. Particular targets included the Pechurski district, where Russian drone debris struck several residential buildings, causing fires. The Podilsky and Desnyansky districts also experienced drone debris issues as the remnants of Russian Shahed types fell near an open space and a clinic respectively. Infrastructure facilities were also attacked in Zaporizhia during Russia's aerial nighttime raid, with repeated shelling leading to the death of a 7-year-old boy. Back in Kyiv, Russia's aerial onslaught injured at least 12 people, 8 of whom had to go to the hospital. Russia managed to cause a lot of damage on October 10. It would have caused a lot more if Ukraine hadn't managed to shoot one of its Kh-69s down using a cheap laser-guided rocket. And that leads nicely to a closer examination of the weapon that Ukraine used and the one that it took out. The focus first turns to the APKWS, which is an interesting piece of kit. United24 Media says that the weapon was developed by BAE Systems, which is a world leader in aerospace technology that's based in the UK. But the program is a US Department of Defense program, so APKWS isn't a Ukrainian weapon. It's a Western rocket that Ukraine has proven is far more useful than anybody in the West, along with Putin, could have ever expected. The APKWS is interesting because it's a conversion kit rather than a standalone rocket. United24 Media says that each of these kits converts a 70mm Hydra rocket into a precision-guided munition by adding the laser seeker mentioned earlier. This seeker uses semi-active laser guidance, SAL, which may be the key behind why Ukraine was able to use it to track and take out a Russian stealth missile, and Ukraine has been using APKWS since 2023. In many ways, the APKWS is similar to the glide rocket kits that Russia has used to such devastating effect against Ukraine. Those kits convert dumb bombs, typically Russia's massive stockpile of Soviet-era fab bombs, into weapons that can travel further thanks to a pair of fold-out wings and a primitive guidance system. APKWS does something similar on the defensive end for Ukraine's rockets, only it converts those rockets into something more precise than Russia's glide bombs could ever hope to be. Naval Air Systems Command provides some more details, noting that the APKWS guidance system is about 18.5 inches long. Added onto a rocket, that guidance system makes the entire weapon almost 74 inches long. A typical APKWS weighs about 32 pounds, with the guidance system accounting for around 9 to 10 pounds of that weight. The rocket Ukraine used is also pretty fast. It hits a top speed of about a kilometer per second, which is roughly equivalent to 2,236 miles per hour. That's almost Mach 3, which may explain why Ukraine's $25,000 rocket was able to hit a Kh-69. As for the APKWS warhead, it's loaded with 10 pounds of explosive thanks to its use of legacy Hydra rockets. Plus, based on all of the information from Naval Air Systems Command, the UK has been more than happy to share this weapon with its Western partners. The US clearly deploys it, and now Ukraine has a steady supply of APKWS kits too. This isn't a new concept either. BAE Systems' own product page notes that APKWS has been combat proven for over 10 years and that its main advantage is hitting a target with pinpoint accuracy while keeping collateral damage to a minimum. In the Kh-69's case, that means the APKWS blew the rocket to pieces with any collateral damage occurring due to debris from that rocket falling onto the ground. As BAE Systems puts it, the APKWS system bridges the gap between unguided rockets and larger anti-armor munitions, with commonality across the US military services, Navy, Marine Corps, Army and Air Force. The APKWS system consistently delivers pinpoint accuracy for the highest lethality available against soft and lightly armored targets at a lower cost than other systems. That bridging of the gap is what's worked in Ukraine's favor. A standard rocket would never have been able to take out a Kh-69, barring a 1 in a million shot that would have required luck over accuracy. As for the larger anti-armor munitions BAE mentions, Ukraine has a very limited supply of those, and they're much more expensive than the APKWS. Ukraine does use these types of systems, with the US-made Patriot perhaps being the most famous example. But if it can achieve the same results using a $25,000 rocket instead of an air defense missile that costs many times more, then those heavier systems can be reversed for even worse threats than those Russia unleashed on October 10. the APKWS is hardly some ancient weapon. It's actually a very clever piece of kit that Ukraine has used to great effect for years, though never quite in the way that it was used on October 10. It's a weapon system that's perfect for dealing with drones and stationary threats, which is what makes it all the more impressive that Ukraine just destroyed one of Russia's premier missiles using a rocket and one of these kits. How impressive? Well, just explore the KH-69 specifications to find the answer to that question. Militani provides the basics in its report on Ukraine's remarkable feat. It says that the KH-69 was unveiled back in 2009, though it was called the KH-59 MK2 at the time. It's made by Russia's Raduga State Machine Building Design Bureau, and it was redesigned almost from the ground up in 2015 to incorporate the sort of stealth elements that should have made it impossible for Ukraine to shoot down using an APKWS. The only thing left after this redesign was the missile's guidance system, with even the body of the missile undergoing an overhaul to ensure the missile was compatible with Russia's new Su-57 fighter jets. Beyond those jets, Russia can launch KH-69s from its Su-30MK, Su-34, Su-35, MiG-29K, and MiG-35S aerial platforms. Russia says that the missile carries a warhead weighing about 683 pounds, which is substantially more than the 10-pound warhead used by the rocket that took the KH-69 out on October 10. Then again, a rocket doesn't have to do much work with a missile packing such a heavy warhead. As long as the rocket can penetrate and explode, the missile's warhead does the rest. Militani adds that the KH-69 travels at up to 622 miles per hour, which is a lot slower than the APKWS, and it has a reported range of roughly 180 to 250 miles. So this is a long-range missile that is fast, though not as fast as the rocket that destroyed it. And with such a massive warhead, it would surely have caused a lot of damage if Ukraine had allowed it to hit its target. Then there's the aspect of the KH-69 that was supposed to make it almost impossible to hit: its stealth capabilities. Army Recognition reports that the KH-69 incorporates wave-absorbing materials in its structure. These materials are supposed to reduce the missile's radar cross-section, making it very difficult to detect and intercept by air defense systems. That small radar cross-section should also come in handy during Russia's massive aerial strikes, as it may make the missile difficult to distinguish from the hordes of drones that Russia sends into Ukraine. Perhaps that's how Ukraine's APKWS was able to find the missile. Maybe it seemed like a drone on radar, only for Ukraine to discover a missile once it locked on. Russia is certainly proud enough of the missile. In February 2024, Bulgarian military referred to the KH-69 as a stealth stunner that was eluding Western intelligence. Putin would have loved to have read that report. Finally, Russia had a missile that Western air defense systems would really struggle to take down. The outlet adds that the missile is also supposed to be stealthier than many of its Western counterparts. The creators of the KH-69 proudly present it as one of Russia's most precise cruise missiles, boasting an impressive error margin of merely 3 meters, Bulgarian military writes. Further accentuating its competitive edge, the missile's distinctive shape and unique materials result in a dispersion area surpassing its Western counterparts, including the Franco-British Scalp EG Storm Shadow, the US AGM-158 JASSM, and Germany's Taurus. A competitive edge the KH-69 may have. But that didn't stop Ukraine from blowing Russia's stealth stunner out of the sky with a $25,000 rocket. Putin will already be fuming about that, as Russia has just been humiliated in a way that he would never have expected when the KH-69 was unleashed. However, he'll be absolutely livid over the fact that this isn't the first time Russia has been left with egg on its collective face when it comes to its advanced stealth missile. In fact, it's not even the first time during the last couple of weeks. As impressive as Ukraine destroying a KH-69 with an APKWS may have been, even that feat lands squarely in the shadow of what it pulled off on September 19. Ukraine has also managed to take out a KH-69 with a World War I era machine gun and just $11 of ammo. Find out more about that in our video covering what happened, but the message from all of this is clear. Russia's most impressive stealth missile may not be as fantastic as Putin would like the world to believe. And even if it does live up to the hype on the stealth front, it's a very bad look for Russia that systems that aren't supposed to be able to take out a Kh-69 are doing just that. The question now is, what does this mean for the future of Ukraine's defense against Russia's Kh-69s? As impressive as shooting one of Russia's stealth missiles down with an APKWS may have been, it can't be assumed that this sort of thing is going to become standard practice for Ukraine going forward. It's good to know that a $25,000 rocket can destroy a Kh-69, assuming the operators behind the system that fires that rocket can spot the Russian missile in flight. However, that's far from guaranteed. So, Ukraine is unlikely to replace its other air defense systems with APKWS rockets anytime soon. Still, it's always nice for Ukraine to have another air defense trick up its sleeve, and Ukraine needs as many of those tricks as it can get, as Russia's missile and drone strikes have only been growing more intense as 2025 has progressed. The week leading up to the Kh-69 being shot down was especially painful for Ukraine. Beyond the strike mentioned earlier in the video, Russia launched thousands of aerial projectiles at Ukraine during the first week or so of October. That's according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who Al Jazeera reports as saying that Russia launched more than 3,100 drones, 92 missiles, and around 1,360 glide bombs. That amounts to 4,500 projectiles in a single week. So anything that Ukraine has that's capable of taking out the most powerful of those projectiles is a massive boon. Defense Blog says the same thing, noting, the system's effectiveness against a stealth profile missile like the Kh-69 would demonstrate an important new capability for Ukrainian air defenses, showing how adaptable Western-supplied systems can be when integrated into Ukraine's layered defense network. It's the new capability that Ukraine will be happiest about, and that will make Putin all the more furious. It's been said before, the APKWS isn't supposed to be able to do what it did on October 10. Now that Ukraine knows that it can, it might start trying to use these rockets to down more of Russia's missiles. The APKWS isn't going to replace what Ukraine already has, as mentioned. But who knows? With the rise of interceptor drones that are capable of taking down Russian Shahed-type unmanned aerial vehicles, perhaps a few more APKWS could be assigned to missile duty in the future. And there's another aspect to what Ukraine just pulled off that might go underreported. The Kh-69 isn't just a missile made by Russia for use in Ukraine, it's a missile that Russia intends to sell. In fact, Russia is already trying to do just that. On June 21, Defense.in reported that Russia was offering its Kh-69 stealth missiles to India for use in the latter's Su-30s. Those missiles would complement the Indian Air Force's Scalp stockpiles, the outlet says. And it notes that Russia is trying to strengthen the long-standing weapons sales relationship that it has with India. That's a relationship that certainly requires some strengthening. Over the last couple of decades, India's reliance on Russia's weapons has been decreasing. That's according to the Center for Countering Disinformation, which said in December 2024 that India got 76% of its weapons imports from Russia in 2009. By 2023, that percentage was down to 36%, representing a clear trend away from Russia's weapons for India. Perhaps Russia had hoped that its offer of Kh-69 missiles to India would help to reverse that trend. Now, the question has to be asked, will India even be interested in a supposed stealth missile that can be taken out by a $25,000 rocket? It can be assumed that the $500,000 price tag for the Kh-69 that was mentioned earlier is Russia's manufacturing cost, rather than what it would see the missile for. A markup is likely, and India will need to buy dozens of these missiles to ensure a decent stockpile. Is it going to take that risk now that it can see what's happening to the Kh-69 in Ukraine? Perhaps. Or perhaps not. And if India does decide to avoid the Kh-69, then what happened on October 10 may have had an unintended and positive side effect for Ukraine. The country was just trying to defend itself against yet another Russian aerial strike. But more Kh-69 humiliation may end up making the missile a very hard sell for Russia, which in turn damages a weapons industry that's already started to struggle once the Ukraine war started. One of Russia's most advanced munitions may not be so advanced after all. At the very least, one more Kh-69 down, this one thanks to an APKWS strike, is one less Kh-69 that could cause serious damage to a Ukrainian city. Now, more APKWS units may even start being taken off drone duty in the future, and not just because of Ukraine's interceptor drones. One Ukrainian teen has stunned his entire country by coming up with a brilliant homemade device that could make Russia's battlefield drones a thing of the past. Find out more in our video, and remember to subscribe to the Military Show for more coverage of Ukraine's latest and greatest feats against Russia.